What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Season Gaming Bitcast, episode 102, and it might help if YouTube did not play loud ads in my ear while I'm trying to talk. That's a good start. So you've got myself, Portia Power, Ainsley Bowden. You've got Dan Rodriguez, who I guess you're representing for Bert this week, going Wet Blanket.
I'm going Wet Blanket today.
All right. And then joining us for the first time is Lohr, so known to many as InsipidGhost and the host of the Xbox Expansion podcast. So Luke, awesome to finally have you on, man.
It is a joy. Thank you for having me today. And you're getting me out of yard work, so it's a bonus for me.
Anytime we can get out of real work to talk video games is a win. So,
right.
All right. So, Luke, as we always do, we're going to be talking about a lot today. We're going to actually have a kind of big Xbox focus because of what was talked about for a May reveal event. But we'll be talking about Horizon Zero Dawn, Assassin's Creed, Grand Theft Auto, and a bunch of things. But before we jump into topics and kind of get the chat involved, always like to talk to guests around kind of talking about what you do in the gaming community. So first things first, Xbox Expansion Pass. So you started this podcast back in October. Your first episode, I just looked it up, was October 7th. And in that time, you've gained a good following. And it's you first reached out to me, I think, like 2 weeks after you started it. Is when we first started talking, and you asked for some feedback. And I'm happy to report that I gave you really positive feedback at the time. But no, it's turned into something really, really good, man, really special. So congrats on that. And, anything you want to say about that, before we get into like your gaming history and stuff.
Well, I appreciate you offering the feedback when you did. When you start a project, it can be a little nerve-wracking and a little bit worrisome because, you make a project and you're like, will anybody listen? Will it be good? Can I make it better? And, since October, I've had the opportunity to speak with some incredible people in the gaming industry, from developers to publishers to on-camera talent personalities, people that work with VO actors. And I'm happy to say that it's been super enlightening from all the people that I've spoken to. And so it's been a pleasure to have people on the show and to share the show with people. So thank you for giving me a chance to talk about it.
Yeah, of course. No, it's fantastic, man. So love what you've done with that. And so let's talk about your gaming history then. No, we were just saying before we got started live here that, you play everything like most of our community does. But you have an Xbox kind of focus, and that's where I guess you'd say your main platform. But going back, how long have you been gaming? What really got you into it from the beginning?
Oh, man. So I'm 34 right now, and my first chance
Young buck.
My first chance to pick up a controller came by way of one of the Atari systems that my parents had Star Wars, and they were just trying to find a way to keep me quiet. And they gave me the opportunity to play around in the game where you fight AT-AT walkers and the AT-ATs flying around in a snowspeeder.
Oh, yeah.
So the moment I realized I could press a button and from there, it would do something on screen, I was hooked. And we didn't have a lot of money growing up, and so I was always a system or two behind. And it wasn't until I could work on my own and save up some money of my own that I was able to buy a PS1. I think was the first current system I bought at the time. And then from there, man, it was just, I want to play everything. I love video games. I love interacting with stories that way. And seeing the evolution of storytelling that way. I'm a teacher in my day job, so I teach stories, and so it's a pleasure to get to play games and have that interaction.
That's awesome. So PS1, so you're at 95, I guess, is when you first really got into it. So did you ever go back and experience any of the 8-bit or 16-bit eras?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. In fact, when my friends were playing the latest and greatest, I would go back and I would play through some of that stuff. And I will also say that, like, one of the best parts about Back Compat and a lot of the collections they put out is you can go back and play things. So recently I was playing through the Genesis collection that's on Xbox One.
Dude, that's a fantastic collection.
It is. And to see what the Genesis was capable of at a time when it shouldn't have been. I mean, some of the games ran atrociously, but like seeing some of the stuff they tried to do with that system, it's really cool as a retrospective. Yeah,
no doubt. No, that's one. I was a Sega kid. We've talked about that a lot. And the Genesis was amazing. I mean, you got to think that released in 1989 here in the US. And it's just crazy to think back, what they were doing at the time. So shout out to everyone in chat. It looks like, Dan, there's some kind of Burt poser in chat who stopped by. Alden, what's up, man? Matt, always a pleasure. So good to see everyone. All right, so let's get this conversation going with Chad involved then around this planned May reveal event. So I know Jazz and Windows Central and a bunch of the kind of Xbox focused sites are talking about this May reveal event, which is where we're supposedly going to see the Xbox Series S, along with some new game reveals. Obviously the Fable reboot is something that keeps getting brought up. But I want to start with the Series S because there's a lot of chatter from people around where this system's place is in the market. And so I was kind of thinking about this extensively this week. I don't know why. I've got nothing else to do, I guess. But kind of thinking through the hardware and what it means. And, we know that they're kind of winding down the Xbox One X with the $299 price reduction. And it just kind of all leads to this next-gen duo, right, between the Series S and X. So one of the things that I was kind of thinking about and get your guys' opinion on is, we've heard from a lot of developers now on this next-gen hardware, and what about the next-gen hardware is going to make the difference in games? And we've heard overwhelmingly two things, and that's really related to the CPUs, because they're finally a modern CPU, not the Xbox One and PS4 dated ones. And of course, the SSDs, the actual drive speeds and throughput. So from a Series S perspective, I know a lot of people are thinking, okay, where does this come into play? A 4 teraflop console is the rumor. Why would you release that? I think it's going to be really interesting to see if Microsoft does like a $299 or $349 Series S that has the CPU and the SSD gains, but just doesn't have the 4K 60 graphical power of the Series X. So where do you guys kind of sit on these Series S rumors? What do you think about the hardware? Is it something you would ever buy? Are you purely going for the best? And do you think it's a good kind of market play to take the low end and the high end and kind of sandwich Sony in the middle? So Luke, let's start with you, man.
I'm of two minds about it. On the one hand, I'm not a highly technical savvy guy. Like, I don't truly understand some of the intricacies of some of the tech. And so when I hear something on the base surface level that, oh, it's 4 teraflops, that means like, okay, so you're releasing a system that's weaker than what you have, that's going to be cheaper than a PS5 and the Series X. I wonder what's the purpose is. Are you holding future games back from the Xbox market? Because it's very clear they're working to be iterative and for Xbox to be the brand and Series to just be the moniker. So I recognize that, but I also, in hearing far more technically prowess people, I recognize that, it's a matter of efficiency, it's a matter of design, and I see that in there. I worry about it holding back the system. I also love the idea that it exists as an entry point for those who might be skeptical of the Xbox brand, for those who might be financially incapable of jumping into the highest end, because not everybody has the same resources available to them. So I'm of two minds about it. I will continue to reside in the fact that Microsoft has done almost everything right post 2015. In re-steering that ship, right? Because they really ran it aground and it was way off course. And so if it seems like a misstep for me early on at this point, given the state of the world and the economies, but they've been doing a lot of stuff right. So I have to give that credit where it is due and take some of the news with a grain of salt, because right now we don't have a confirmed Lockhart at the moment.
That's true. Dan, I know we've talked about this offline quite a bit, but what are your thoughts here based on what, the expectations are for Series S?
Obviously I'm going to go get the X because Series X.
Well, you may be a good example too, not to interrupt you, but you have in your family, you've got kids at home and you've got several consoles, Switches and Xboxes and everything, right? So does the Series S make a play for a family guy like yourself?
Depends on the price. So it needs to be, like Bert said in chat, between $200 to $300. I would say lower, on the lower end of that scale. What I don't understand is it's supposed to have an SSD on it, right? But it's a little bit less.
Well, like I said, so
the current X.
So the rumor. So think about it this way, right? When you build your PC, the thing you're spending the most money on is your graphics card.
Yeah.
That's just unless you're really high end on the CPU, but think about the Series S as being, getting the CPU and the drive speed gains of next gen, but just having a lower end, smaller sock graphics card, right? That's where the price difference is going to come in. But it may not be capable, like I said, of 4K 60, or we don't really know yet. But imagine that you get all the gains of the CPU processing. They can use all the new architecture, the velocity architecture they talked about, all those integration points. You've got the I/O throughputs from the SSDs. You get all those gains that the Xbox One X doesn't have. So even though the Xbox One X can do 4K, it's held back by a number of other things, right?
Yeah, but again, we're talking about 1% of the fan base here. I've always said that this is going to be, this is going to appeal to more the broader spectrum,
mass market, right?
Yeah, the mass market, right? This is going to be more, and I understand what they're doing with it, but I mean, it's at the same time, I don't know, man. If you can go buy an X right now, or for a couple, $250 or whatever you see it on sale for, you can buy an S and you can play all these games. There's really no reason for like the hardcore or the not hardcore, fan base to really go out and purchase a new console. I mean, they're
if you already have an X, you mean?
Right, or an S. I mean, you're gonna be able to play all these games.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have an OG Xbox, for God's sakes. It's gonna run like crap, maybe, but that's what people are gonna do. And it's just, if you add another SKU to the thing, that's fine. If you can do it, you're Microsoft, you got shitloads of money, and it's fine, no problem. But it's, you just gotta, I don't know. I don't understand why you would need this, I guess, when you
sound almost like Luke, where you're of two minds. You can't decide if this is a good or a bad thing.
I don't get it. I mean, you've got the X now that will be able to do most of this stuff, and to a certain point, up until what do they say, a year and a half, 2 years, or whatever, before they start releasing games that are going to be solely on, that will only work on the X1, the Series X. God, there's so many.
It sounds like they're pushing the scalability of games really hard. The idea of PCs right now can go up real high, and they can also drop down a decent amount. It sounds like that's what they're trying to do with the brand and the console market. It just worries me. It just worries me because it's new, and new is hard to do for fan bases. A lot of what they tried to do in 2013, while extremely mismanaged, was forward thinking. And it was too new for people that weren't ready. I mean, think about it. Apple drags their fan base kicking and screaming into newer things. I'm wondering if Xbox is trying to do that a bit more succinctly and a bit more with a bit less frustration along the way.
Yeah, it very well could be. And to Dan's point, it really does come down to price, right?
Yeah.
If you're talking about, if this comes out and it's $399, the play is gone. I think you have to be under the $300 range. I can't really see it being a lot less than that, because you're still talking about an expensive SSD, unless it's a cheaper drive than is in Series X. We don't know. But if you're matching that CPU and drive, and the real difference is just the graphics card, then you can't really go under that price. I mean, the Series X, for the power it's already a bargain. If it comes in at $499, that's an absolute bargain of piece of hardware. So yeah, I don't know. It's going to be really come down to see what the Series S can produce. To Dan's point too, is it going to really demonstrate meaningful differences over an Xbox One X for someone that doesn't want to go out and buy a Series X for whatever reason? And I think it's another thing to consider, right? And I'm sure Sony and Microsoft are thinking heavily about this, but just the state of the world right now. We talked about that last week, right? We don't know. Coronavirus has had a ridiculous impact on the global markets, distribution, pricing, unemployment's at an all-time high, at least here in the U.S. So are people, the mass market, going to be ready to spend $500 or $600 on a new console this fall? Don't know.
No.
I thought it was rhetorical. I'm wondering about their production, because repeatedly over the past month, we have seen Microsoft and Xbox and Phil Spencer specifically double down on the idea that production is not a concern. They fully expect to launch this holiday. And when they're doubling and tripling down, I think that speaks to, one, they've got a much larger market cap than Sony, so they can burn cash to prioritize their devices. Similarly, from what I understand of the components involved, they made it a very simple setup, but also using PC parts that are not not solely proprietary. And because PlayStation has a very customized setup, it might be more difficult to assemble those parts en masse for the audience they reach. And I wonder if that doesn't actually help Sony, that blue ocean strategy that Nintendo employs quite often. Yeah. So there's a lot to consider about how they launch later this year.
Yeah, no, great points. Fantastic. And to that point, in fact, I think Ryan McCaffrey echoed it again on this week, is that, in that conversation he had with Phil Spencer a few weeks ago, Phil made it really clear that he has the backing of the CFO and Satya Nadella himself, for the pricing point on this console. There's zero doubt in my mind that the Series X will match the PS5's price, whatever it is. Even if they have to be fluid with it, they're going to come down to match that. So with the higher end hardware, so kind of interesting. So let's get off of Series S then and talk about the rest of what we want to see from this May event. So a lot of rumors, we're all in speculation here, but we can have a little fun with it. So talking about, Playground Games' project, which is, everyone really knows is heavily rumored to be a reboot of Fable. And we've seen some kind of artwork and things of that nature. We also plan to see more of Halo Infinite. There was a supposed leak this week, but I've heard from good people that I trust that leak of Halo Infinite is fake. So we're not going to really talk about those things. But I wanted to ask you guys, so in terms of Fable, if Fable is truly being rebooted, let's start there. What would you want to see from that game? Because if you think back to Fable, we're going back a long way now, right? Original Xbox on the original Fable, and then Fable 2 shortly into the 360's lifespan. And it's been a long time since that IP's been around. We're going to forget about Fable Legends while we're talking here. But the Western RPG has matured a lot in that time. Witcher 3 is the gold standard. We talk about that game, I think, every week here. But you've got things like where Assassin's Creed has gone, right, with Origins and Odyssey, and turned those into big Western kind of open world RPGs. And we'll talk about the new Assassin's Creed here shortly. But in an ideal world, what would you guys want to see out of a new Fable?
Everything. I mean, here's the thing. Here's the thing that I've said 100 times. These companies, especially with the IP this old, all right, everything before them is basically laid out, and they know what works, right? And then, you have games like Crackdown 3 that comes out, and it's just like, well, you guys could have done that way, way better. And there's all these games that, you could have just taken cues from, right? And they need to do that with this. There's, good things about The Witcher 3. There's good things about, say, like Dragon Age, Inquisition, but you can sit there and pick what you want from all these games and make like this uber awesome Western RPG that, in the Fable universe, so that's going to be kind of, I just as well just say, the whole reboot, the whole just start fresh, carry over a few things here and there, kind of like God of War did, where, hey, this is, we're going to completely reimagine this thing. And
they were certainly successful at it.
Hell yeah, they were. It was amazing. So, that's what I want to see from Fable. Will we get it? Who knows? Playground Games is awesome, though. I'm not going to say anything bad about them. They're amazing.
Super talented.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm inclined to agree. They need a full reboot. It needs to be a fully new approach. As wonderful as the Fable games initially were for those fan bases, they are very dated if you go back and mess around with those remasters. And every single time, they fell short of what was promised. There's a lot of humor involved with that because of Peter Molyneux's approach to it and exaggerant tones. But they do need to blow it up and start fresh and maybe have some homages to it. I think something Breath of the Wild did very well for anyone that investigated that game. You could go around the world in Breath of the Wild and you would see things and be like, is that the Sky Temple from Skyward Sword? Is that this temple from this game? But it wasn't overtly said, and it didn't matter to the story. God of War did similar things like this, kind of paying tribute and homage, but being a new brand and new approach. And as you said, that genre has matured. And I'd like to think they are acutely aware of their serious AAA failings and successes. They've done a great job at supporting some of the games that came out in AA fashion and then rising them up. Sea of Thieves recovered quite well in a way that I didn't like Sea of Thieves at all when it first launched. With the anniversary update and the subsequent updates, I have a signed poster by the developers on my wall of it.
Nice.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
State of Decay, kind of the same process. So I think they need a full reboot, capitalize on what people want from an RPG, an action RPG, and deliver on some of the things that might have failed before, and then decide, I'm sure they've already done this, but decide whether it's single player focused with multiplayer elements, or it's a fully co-op game, because those will play a lot into the community respect for the franchise and the criticisms that they have of their catalog.
That's a good point, Luke. I actually hadn't even considered that they would go down a co-op or multiplayer route, right? I've had it stuck in my mind that whatever they're building is going to be a purely single player experience, but who knows, right? In fact, we're going to talk here shortly around Horizon Zero Dawn and what's rumored for part 2 of that, which they're talking about co-op as well. But yeah, I think even the guys in chat are saying the same thing. Bert's in there. Lunch Bizzle, what's up, guys? Thanks for joining. And yeah, he'd love to see a more modern, less cartoony graphics Fable, but with more RPG elements as well. And I completely agree. Something that pays homage to your point around it's got the British humor, right? It's got that kind of fantasy element to it, but that is also realistic in a sense in terms of graphics, and deep RPG elements is what I'm hoping for. Maybe not as deep as something like Divinity or Original Sin 2, something like that, but at least really story driven, and of course loot. I gotta mention loot. So Mike, welcome, man. Good to see Mike from NLG in here. All right, so one question I wanted to ask you guys then. So looking back, actually, before I get there, I wanted to run through and talk about what is coming for Xbox this year, because I think we're talking about events and people are saying, I want to hear about new games. And I went back to an article I wrote a couple months ago around Xbox first or second party output for 2020. And there's a lot of games that are coming, maybe not AAA big budget games, but a lot of games that I think people are forgetting about. So we've got Minecraft Dungeons here in 4 weeks, right? Coming out officially. But then the rest of the year, there's a lot of things that have been talked about that are coming that I think, like I said, people are forgetting. So you've got Wasteland 3. You've got Battletoads coming at some point. We still need to see the Cuphead DLC, right? The expansion, Delicious Last Course. Gears Tactics releases in just a few days. Can't wait. You've got Flight Simulator, which is, in testing on PC now, eventually coming to Xbox. Halo Infinite. Tell Me Why is a... from Don't Nod, Life is Strange developer coming. Psychonauts 2, obviously a new Forza Motorsport. You've got Grounded. Don't forget that Crossfire X is coming, the multiplayer game out of China from Smilegate. And then Remedy is making a first, single player component to that game as well. And then you've got Session, which is a skateboarding title, along with Skater XL. So all of these games were announced, months ago at E3 or somewhere else, and are already coming. But in terms of what you would like to see from Xbox and their category, if you had to pick one of their IPs to return, and it can be Fable if that's your top one, what would you like to see return the most?
Go ahead, Luke.
I feel a bit strange because I recognize all of their failings in their catalog and all the places they've fallen short with their double and in single and double A offerings. They certainly need more AAA stuff, but I don't have much affinity for the stuff that we haven't seen from them. I really do like Gears and Halo, and I enjoy State of Decay and Sea of Thieves, to their moderate, critical successes. But I think Fable is the right answer if it's done well. And I think at the end of the day, most gamers just want good games, regardless of what the title is. And so I'm excited to see Fable. I think the Forza Horizon series does well. I mean, they can go back into some of their catalog, but they do not have the legacy that some other first-party publishers have. Nintendo and Sony have great first-party publishers by simple fact of being around longer. And so it's either new stuff or bringing something like Fable back because it's important to the fan base that's there. The one that we don't talk about often enough that I'd love to see is Crimson Skies. I think that would be a great game to come back. I mean, that was just such a beloved cult classic that has only gained following and mind share every time it's kind of brought up a little bit here and there. And so maybe that's the answer to the question.
Okay. Yeah, Crimson Skies is a fantastic game, man. I have fond memories of playing that game on the original Xbox Live, back on the OG. Dan, what do you want to see, man? Is it Fable?
I mean, it's pretty much Fable. I mean, you go back, and I can't really think of a whole lot of like their original IPs. Mech Assault would be awesome.
Yep.
They could.
Another great one.
I mean, yeah, that was remember back in the day, I was in Chicago and they had like, this was Mech Warrior though, but they had like these pods that you could go into. And ever since then, I've been wanting some kind of cool mech game. That one, Crimson Skies, would be good. But there's not a whole lot that I can really think of that I would like to see back aside from Fable. That I've been yelling for that for years though. So,
and Dan, you say mech. That was Phil Spencer's answer to that question as well. When Ryan McCaffrey asked him some weeks ago, he said, "What do you want to see back?" And he did say Mech Assault.
So, 100%. I would love to see that back. But at this point, to your point, Luke, I'd like to see some new IPs too. I'd like to see some new stuff, come out and like just wow people, like Horizon Zero Dawn did for PlayStation, where it's just like, well, that came out of nowhere, and it just was amazing, So that's what Xbox needs to do this next generation. They've got the studios, but and we know like Hellblade 2 is coming and stuff like. But we just I want more confirmation of these games. I want to see some cool new stuff, and that's not. No offense to the Xbox guys, but Battletoads, I can give a crap less, about some kind of, I just don't care. I want good, long, meaty games. That sounded super, super bad, but
I'm surprised to hear you say Mech Assault, because that was a core multiplayer game. Competitive
but that was back when I actually was good at multiplayer. So that wouldn't be a bad deal. But yeah, I mean, all the other, the ones that you mentioned, a lot of them are, heavily multiplayer games. Not just that doesn't really appeal to me, I guess, just because of how I play games. But let's just shoot for Fable and call it good, because
I think Dizzy said it'd be really funny if they come out and it is a brand new IP, right? It's not Fable.
I'll do it.
Playground. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting, Ains. A lot of the games that you mentioned are not exclusive to Xbox. Wasteland and Minecraft Dungeons are both coming to multi-platform, including PlayStation. Which
Dungeons too.
I think that's a great choice right now. Not only is Xbox pushing to have their content and their games on PC platforms and be accessible to those audiences, Steam. I would imagine we see them on GOG at some point. They seem to be very close with CD Projekt Red, but they're working to get their brands other places. Putting Ori on the Switch and Cuphead on the Switch meant that people were seeing Xbox Game Studios or, this game was on Xbox. And that's important to winning back mindshare after a generation of being trounced 2-1 in terms of console sales to PlayStation. So I think it's neat to see them supporting the games that they purchased when they got the studios and slowly making their way. I mean, Dan said it, Hellblade 2, goodness gracious, that's one of the coolest trailers of all time.
No doubt.
On the crowd, special.
Yep. We're big Hellblade fans here. All of us were, including Bird. And I simply cannot wait for that game. Of course, no, it's a good point. And I think, I liked Phil's response a couple weeks ago, too, when he talked about just that, Ori and Cuphead being on the Switch, and saying that, it's good. And we need to be very clear with our fan base what games of ours are going to be elsewhere and not just on the Xbox and PC platform, right? And of course, I can't leave this segment without me giving a shout out to Banjo. God damn it. Excuse my language. We need to see Banjo 3, a true Banjo 3. I'm one of those guys. I adore the Banjo games, and I've talked about it at length. So I hope if any of the old rare IPs are being brought back, we see Banjo.
Do you think you'll get it? Because Battletoads was outsourced to Delilah, and I think people are frustrated. I played it. I enjoyed it, but like Dan said, it's like, all right, that's probably Game Pass filler. It's a
fun Game Pass game, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's not the game. Do you think they would make it themselves, or would they send Banjo to somebody else, kind of a second party approach?
I don't know. It hurts me to even think about it.
Fair enough, buddy.
The first two games are just so good. They're some of the best platforming games of all time. Yeah. And it's a shame, man. And they're loved characters. I mean, look what happened when they added them in Smash. It was a huge thing. People went nuts for it. So anyway, we'll get off of that. So, and just a side note here, speaking of Game Pass, is Red Dead 2 on Game Pass on May 7th. Big acquisition for them. Really interesting to see Grand Theft Auto 5 and now Red Dead 2 coming on May 7th, and Phil thanking Rockstar for the support. So don't know, of course, what that means in the future, but really cool to see. And Dan and I could probably preach all day about the greatness of Red Dead 2, but we've done that a million times, so we'll save the audience that today. Although, Luke, I have to ask, you a Red Dead 2 fan or not really?
So I've never played Red Dead 2. I got the Redeemer achievement in Red Dead 1. I played all through Undead Nightmare as well. I loved Red Dead, but the slow pacing and the critical reception to Red Dead 2 and the timing, I was playing other things at the time.
Yep.
I didn't get into it. I'm hesitant. I don't want to brush my horse. Like, it's just excessive nature there. So I will absolutely try it now that it's on Game Pass, but I was not going to fork down $40 or $60 at the time to try it. But it is neat to see Rockstar cozying up to Game Pass as a platform. I think it could be a launching point to launch GTA Online Solo into that platform, or Red Dead Online Solo later on, because they were in PS Now and then they left. We're seeing them rotate GTA out. So there's a lot of ideas there. But Red Dead is a special franchise. I don't think it had the reception they wanted it to. But it's still making money for them, and that's the kicker there.
It was in the MPD again this month, still selling. So it's over 30 million or something like that.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked about Horizon Zero Dawn, so I wanted to talk about that because a report came out of VGC this week that several sources have told them that we already knew Horizon Zero Dawn 2 was in development. It should have been obvious that it's going to be on the PS5. The scope of it is said to be gigantic, bigger than the first game. And also said to be co-op. But they also mentioned this becoming a trilogy. And if you think about Herman Holst, who used to be the head of Guerrilla Games, leading the development of the original Horizon Zero Dawn when they went off of Killzone, he's now the head of Sony Worldwide Studios. So it should come as little surprise with as successful as Horizon Zero Dawn 1 was on the PS4, selling over 10 million copies, now going to PC, as we know. It's going to be one of the core IPs, I think, for Sony and the PS5 next gen. But really interesting to hear that they're already planning for it to be a trilogy, and trying to picture what that game looks like with co-op. I kind of think that playing co-op in that world, especially taking down some of the bigger creatures with a friend, could be really, really fun. So, Dan, I obviously know that you're a big HZD fan. We talk about that a lot. What do you think of this news? You down for the co-op? Obviously down for the bigger, kind of better game on PS5, I'm sure. But
oh yeah, for sure. No, I can care less about co-op. It's either going to be, I'm sure it won't be like a way out co-op, but I just don't see a reasoning for it, I guess. I mean, like I said, I'm just a huge single player guy, so I'm going to play most of that stuff by myself. And I guess it's a nice option. That's fine. I just don't want. When they add all these kind of things into like the development and just tack on stuff, and I just feel like the base game suffers.
Okay.
And that's they don't need to do it. I mean,
you think they're going to lose focus on what made it great?
Yeah, just make a good Horizon Zero Dawn game. I bought a PlayStation to play that game. And MLB, but both of them.
We'll forgive you for that piece,
right? It's everyone for 4 years now. But anyway, it's I don't know, man. I'm all down for a new HCD, but I just don't know about the co-op aspect if it's really necessary. I mean, I'm sure they could pull it off to where they're a great studio again, but it doesn't really. You really need it? Is my question.
Okay.
That's the biggest thing.
Okay. Luke, did you play Horizon Zero Dawn?
I did. I wasn't. It launched around the same time as Breath of the Wild, and I think I got more into that at the time.
Gotcha.
But it's a world ripe for exploration, and if you look at it from a pulled back scale sense, it looks like Horizon Zero Dawn is going to be replacing Uncharted as one of their pillar franchises for the time being, which is a wise thing to give it a break. I would look at this news from a couple perspectives. First, we have seen Sony making adjustments to their business strategy, and something Microsoft has done well, not selling units, but still making money, was making some of their single-player games or games that could be played single-player available to co-op or available to having multiple people join the session kind of thing. And it's quite possible we see them take a note out of that playbook and have a single-player focused franchise trilogy and then maybe a spin-off or a secondary mode, because I think Monster Hunter World probably taught them that taking down giant beasts together can be very fun, can be very profitable. You could create a second experience that doesn't cost Dan his single-player narrative, but still provides some of that gameplay for people that want the loop. And we've also seen Sony adjusting their business strategy. I mean, in a couple ways, MLB probably pulled some strings. Baseball, the MLB franchise pulled them some strings, but now we're seeing them branch into other platforms as well. So they're trying to find ways to be more profitable outside of buy console, sell game, because that doesn't always bring in as many dollars as we as gamers might think on some occasions.
No, that's an interesting point. It'd be, I think HZD, like you said, is going to be a pillar franchise for PlayStation, right? So it'll have the capability to be more than just a single player game every 4 years or whatever, if they wanted to, right? Just like they did with Uncharted. You had Uncharted, Lost Legacy. You had the golden. Why am I forgetting the Vita? Golden Abyss. Is that what it was?
Yeah. Which was a great game, except when you had to hold it up to the light. I loved that Vita game.
They tried to incorporate all the Vita stuff, and it kind of took away from it. But the game itself was fun, yeah. And funny enough, that was Ben's studio who made Days Gone that did the Golden Abyss. But yeah, no, I'm super excited about this. I've said before, I think if you look at the major IPs and first parties for Sony, I think Horizon Zero Dawn 2 will be the game we see first, before Spider-Man 2, before God of War 2. So I'm super excited about it. That game is so incredibly gorgeous, even on a PS4 Pro today, that just imagining what they can do on the PS5, it already has me just excited. Definitely not wet blanket on that one.
No.
Spider-Man, I think Spider-Man 2, I agree with you, is going to be further out. And they're also going to have to time it to stagger Spider-Man content with Into the Spider-Verse 2 and the third Spider-Man Marvel MCU movie. And I think that's going to be, they want to keep the franchise relevant but not exhaust it. So they're probably going to be balancing those things for release dates, especially as they push due to C-Virus,
Yeah, that's true. And Dan, I know, Dan, you're a massive Spider-Man fan all around, right, of the character. So, yeah, I'm sure you'd be okay with seeing that game and movie release and everything all at the same time. You'd be in Spider-Man Overload.
Yeah, I mean, I'm literally playing Spider-Man again. Last week I played through the whole campaign again. So now I'm on the DLC. It's just that game, to me, was probably one of the best last year or the year before, I guess it was. It was so good. And I'm like, being a Spider-Man fan, that just kind of...
They seem to strike the right chord with Spider-Man fans.
Yes.
They seem to really do it well for them.
Yeah, they made it just, a little bit... The universe that they created was familiar enough for longtime fans, but also, different enough to bring in a whole new audience, I think. So it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's why it's sold the way it has.
Yeah.
So we're going to jump over to Assassin's Creed. So there's been a lot, Ubisoft games, they tend to leak pretty heavily here and there. So we've heard a lot already about this new Assassin's Creed that's coming later this year. And without a doubt, this game's going to launch, in my mind anyway, because Ubisoft will not miss the opportunity to launch with the new consoles. So they're tentatively calling this one Valhalla now. It was said to not be named Kingdom, which was the prior rumor. But a few kind of notes on it came out this week that I wanted to touch on is the Hidden Blade returns. I know a lot of people in Origins and Odyssey were, really wanting that more assassin-y, kind of going back to more of the original gameplay. So that's supposed to return. We've heard this multiple times now, is that it's going to feature an abundance of supernatural content. So they kind of dabbled with that in the past two, right? In Odyssey, I think some of the most fun aspects of that game were the supernatural pieces, in my opinion. So this is actually really cool to see. And if you remember, the prior thing we heard from a developer on this is that they were studying some of the missions in The Witcher 3 to going in lore, kind of Viking lore and mythology type things. So that could be really interesting. They said it's going to continue to be a full-blown RPG and even deeper than Odyssey, which that's a big statement because Odyssey is a massive, massive game. It takes place in Scandinavia, but there'll be other regions in the game as well. And again, the main protagonist is primarily female, but you can choose to be male as well, kind of like what we saw in Odyssey. So I know Odyssey for you and I, Dan, was one of our favorite games of, was it 2017? Can't remember.
Who the hell knows?
Yeah, 2018, I don't know.
18.
Yeah, fantastic game, though, through and through. There were some things I found repetitive about it. Some of the world felt a little empty at times. But regardless, excellent game. So, Luke, you Assassin's Creed fan franchise. Did you play Origins, Odyssey? You looking forward to this?
I would say I'm a casual Assassin's Creed fan. I did play all the way through Origins. I played quite a bit of Odyssey. Black Flag is one of my favorite games in the franchise. And then I think there's some heavy misses with Assassin's Creed as well.
Gotcha.
So when I hear stuff like this, I'm excited because as long as they don't go to present day, I'm a happy camper. That's, I think, the weakest part of all the Assassin's Creed
I agree.
games.
I completely agree.
And when they lean into what makes Assassin's Creed special, I'm a happy camper as well, because the supernatural elements have more recently been fitting in quite nicely, I think, with Origins and Odyssey especially. But branching away from sort of the rigid ideas of Eden and some of the things they want to do in that story and just letting it be its own thing, I think worked very well for Black Flag. And I think worked very well for Origins. And so I would like to see that happen. I'm surprised that Kingdom wasn't Saudi Arabia. I would have thought that would have happened. But I love the idea of Valhalla. Like, I dig that. I think we've seen a nice resurgence of Norse mythology rising up in mindshare for a lot of people, thanks to the Marvel universes. But it's a cool concept. And the idea that you'd be carrying very different type weapons in Scandinavia than you would have in any of the other Assassin's Creed games. Very heavy type weaponry, a different type of traversal. So that is an exciting rumor to look at, I think.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see where it goes, right? Then it's, to your point, Lou. I mean, I think with the resurgence of that Norse mythology, kind of deal, it's almost, this will probably be pushing my limits between God of War and Hellblade, and
we're getting a lot of it, aren't we?
We're getting a lot. So, but I've also been an Assassin's Creed fan since the first one. I've played all of them to some extent, and I want to see what they can do, and it's just the thing with Assassin's Creed games is they're always the same. Go to the tower, jump off the tower. The best part about this whole thing is the hidden blade. The fact that they took that out of the last game, it just blew my mind, because that was Assassin's Creed to me. It was always, walking up behind somebody and then
it's kind of in the title.
Right. That's kind of what the whole point of the game was, for me anyway. And it just felt a lot less assassin-y and more, I don't know what the word is, just warrior.
It was more of an action RPG than
right, yeah, but it was still good.
Yeah.
I love getting on the boats, and they did a really good job with that without making it too, without distancing themselves from the core mechanics of the game, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll see what they can do. I love Ubisoft games, even though they're all pretty much the same thing over and over again. But there's a certain comfort in just the reliability. You know what you're going to kind of get, so it's just like, okay, yeah, I know what's going to come here. But
that Ubisofty pillow, blanket.
It's a nice warm blanket. Familiarity, so I'll take it.
It's true, though. I agree with you. You do know what you're going to get, and they do have an addictive game loop, right? They keep you playing. There's just something about them. Yep. Whereas I think Assassin's Creed's been pretty good at kind of broadening their scope, whereas something like Far Cry, I think, really needs a rethink at this point. But that's a whole nother topic. But no, I'm super excited for this. Love just the Viking setting, Scandinavian setting. They're talking about being a more full-blown RPG. So if you get deeper kind of skill trees, deeper loot, I'm all in on this. And as we saw with, I think it was Origins. I know Origins launched way back when, or several years ago now. But Odyssey, if you look at that game on the Xbox One X, it's absolutely gorgeous. Probably one of the prettiest games out there. So thinking about what Ubisoft can do with the PS5 and Series X will be probably stunning, I'm sure.
Ains, I gotta tell you, man, Assassin's Creed Black Flag, that was the first game on the PS4, because I was a PS4 guy at the start of the generation.
It was a cross-gen game, because they made it for both. It was. Right? Yeah.
I know. Well, Rogue was on. You know what? I'm not actually sure top of my head, but I will tell you that it was the first next-gen feeling game at the time.
Okay.
And it was just gorgeous and stunning. But mechanically, there was a difference between Origins and Odyssey that really bugged me about. Some Ubisoft games do this, some don't, and that's level scaling. I like being very OP at the end of Origins, and in Odyssey, I couldn't be OP. They would scale the enemies, and some people love that. And I'm curious to see whatever they do in their next project, wherever it is, if they keep the level scaling mechanic as a pillar in their design philosophy.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because if you follow Witcher 3, I know, like I said, we talk about this game every time, but they added that feature to Witcher 3 about a year after release, and you can turn it on or off. So if you want to be the guy who's a level 50 in Witcher 3 and overpowered and just wrecking everyone, you can. But if you're someone who likes the challenge where no matter where you go, the enemies are your level, you can turn that on, which I do. But it doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't Ubisoft just give you the option? Like you said, you don't like it. I do like it. Just give us the option. That way we can play the game we want to play. It doesn't seem that difficult. So especially for a game as big as that, right?
Gotcha.
All right. So I want to talk about Grand Theft Auto because we heard some stuff out of Rockstar last week, and I know they talked about this on IGN's Xbox podcast as well, and that is about the size and scope of Grand Theft Auto 6. So we obviously know Grand Theft Auto 6 is coming. Rockstar has talked at length around their development cycles and how long they are, to get games out. We look at Red Dead 2, for example, and that giant worldwide, wealth of studios that they use to get those games done because they're so massive. So there's been a conversation with Rockstar around crunch and, the way they treat their developers, and it seems to be a big topic across the industry right now, right? And I know, not Bert, I'm looking at the name, Dan's favorite guy, Jason Schreier, likes to talk about crunch quite a lot.
Crunch.
But what we're hearing is that Rockstar is making a lot of changes to their leadership model and how they develop these games. And what it may lead to is Grand Theft Auto 6 releasing in a smaller state. So not as huge, scope as Red Dead Redemption 2 and maybe Grand Theft Auto 5, but releasing in a moderate size and then releasing expansions to the single player content as well over time. Obviously, Grand Theft Auto Online is its own thing, and, we'll put that to the side. But wanted to hear from you guys, if you hear about Grand Theft Auto 6, and it obviously will be one of the biggest games in the world. Grand Theft Auto 5 is 7 years old and still top 10 in MPD every month, which just is mind-boggling at this point. But would you be okay, or would you, like it if they released Grand Theft Auto 6 a year or two earlier on a smaller scale and then just kept continuing to release expansions for it? Or do you really love it like Red Dead 2, where you drop in and you've got a world that you can sink 200-300 hours into right out of the gate at your own pace?
Go ahead, Luke.
I'm all for the culture changes and putting out stuff a little bit sooner and at a smaller scale. One of the things I think Rockstar I think it's the Hauser brothers before Dan Hauser left, rather, I should say. They were picky to a fault, and we got these elite, high caliber games that were wonderful experiences. But there's so much time in between their releases, and it seems to me that we're going to have a decade between 5 and 6 as launch. I don't subscribe to that. I would rather have like Star Wars is a good example. I would rather have Fallen Order 2 sooner rather than worrying about that little bit of graphical animation for the leaf as I walk by it. And so I would like to subscribe to that same mantra. I also think that that's a good financial endeavor for studios, not just of Rockstar's caliber, but of any caliber, to give gamers a game, and then those who are interested are able to dive in, support, and then can re-up and continue purchasing or exploring content. Free updates are important within that because they build mind share. But I think it's a good economical endeavor to have a good, 30-hour game experience and then drop content in there. We've seen it be very successful, to my surprise, I might add, in a number of games that are not related to Rockstar. So I'm all for more games at a faster release rate than what Rockstar does. I'm also for reducing the amount of crunch by way of efficiency and by culture in a studio. So that's how I tend to view this kind of thing. I don't need to brush the horse, Rockstar. I don't need to do that. I don't
leave our horse alone, Luke. Leave it alone.
So that's how I tend to approach that.
No, that's fair. What do you think? Damn it! I keep going to call you Bert. Change your name.
I can't. I gotta wait till I log out. I'll talk to you next week.
What do you think?
Just call me Bert the whole time. So here's the thing. I don't think they need to, because like you guys said, still one of the top 10 selling games, however long it's been, 30 years after it released, right? And they can continue to, and they still do continue to add stuff to GTA Online right now.
Yeah.
So they've got obviously a team working over there doing that constantly. They can take their time with GTA 6 if they really want to, because I don't see GTA Online right now slowing down at all. And as far
They'll
as
just carry it over.
Right, yeah. And as far as like a single player aspect of GTA, I mean, I don't know. Like, so right now I'm playing Final Fantasy 7 Remake, and I'm afraid I'm going to get to the end of it and be like, damn it. I know there's more to it, and I'm going to be then having to wait probably 30 years for the second iteration of that one. So I'm impatient, when like Telltale releases their games episodic, when they did. At first I would play it, as soon as it came out, and but then about halfway through their run of games, I kind of just waited and just played it all the way through. So because I forget, I'm old. I I go to sleep and then I forget whatever happened the next day, because that's how it should be. I don't even know what I have for breakfast again, but it's just, I can't process, I played, I think it was the last the Walking Dead one. And, by the time they all came out, with all the Telltale stuff that happened, I was able to play through them all at one time, and remember everything that happened, and with the game as big as GTA, to get, like you said, Luke, for a financial model, yeah, sure, it makes sense. As long as they put it in there, they say, okay, this is a $60 game, not like Final Fantasy is doing, and you're gonna get it all. You're just gonna get it all over time. That's fine, I guess. I can choose not to play it, until later on. But that's just my mindset, I guess. I just don't think they have to right now. I think
Rockstar doesn't have to do anything.
Yeah, no,
they're printing money as we speak.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think going back to Grand Theft Auto 5, I think the question would be is how big would Grand Theft Auto 6 be? As long as it's a big complete experience, and then the expansions are optional, right? With Final Fantasy 7 Remake, you're getting only part of a game,
right?
A game that's already been made. This would be different. I would think that Grand Theft Auto 6 would be a complete experience, and then there'd be additional stories to tell, right? They were supposed to do that, if you remember, for Grand Theft Auto 5. It was supposed to have single player DLC. Yeah, but I think GTA Online. Go ahead.
I was just very interested in that, because I much prefer narratives in a number of my games, and even the multiplayer games. I tend to play those single player more often than not. So I was bummed when the single player DLC didn't happen, and I did not do the subsequent rebuys on per system and multiple playthroughs, because I wanted story, and they stopped adding story. Now, hats off to them. The story they put in there was meaty. It had a lot of options. You could do
a huge game.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm not taking away from that, but I was looking forward to more story.
Yeah, me too.
I'm with you.
Yep, completely agree. So as long as it's a complete experience, I'm okay with that. But to your point, Dan, I would hate to see it become not necessarily episodic, but reminiscent of something that's episodic, right?
Yep.
So we'll see. I think you said it, Luke. This game is not coming out anytime soon. I think we've got at least a few years yet. They even said it's early in development, which kind of is mind-boggling if you think about it, right? The time they spent on Red Dead Redemption 2 to get that out, but Red Dead Redemption 2 is a year and a half old now, and you got to figure that a lot of the team, their piece of development had been done well before that. So it's kind of weird to hear that Grand Theft Auto 6 is in early in development now. That's strange to me. But the one interesting thing I was thinking about Grand Theft Auto is they've always had commentary on society, right? That's one of the great things about Grand Theft Auto is the way they kind of mock everyone in society. It's no holds barred. And if you think about what the world is going through right now and what has changed since Grand Theft Auto 5 release in 2013, the potential for Rockstar to just go crazy with Grand Theft Auto 6 is massive. I don't know the word I'm looking for, but it's big.
Massive.
All right, so let's touch on real quick the March NPD, because I thought this was interesting. So we know that gaming sales are up. Video games are kind of hotter than ever right now because of everyone just being in their house and being told to stay in and play video games, which, I'm not really complaining too much about it. I like it. But we saw in the March MPD that PlayStation 4 and Xbox One both saw sales increase, both year over year and on the prior month. But the more interesting thing is that the Switch broke records, and so did Animal Crossing. So just for reference and just for a laugh, I figure we talk about Animal Crossing in a couple weeks has sold over 10 million copies. And that is, remember, just on a single Switch. It's exclusive, right? And the Switch, according to the guys at MPD, sold more consoles in March than any other console since the MPD started tracking for any month, all time.
Gross.
So if you think about PS4 launch, Switch launch, holiday sales, when those units sell over 1 million per month, right? As you go to October, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Switch sold more in March than any console of all time. It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
They're directly related, right? I mean, especially since you can only have one island per Switch. So on
you gotta get on your.
So
all right, let's hear it.
Okay. Here's the thing. All right, that's just Nintendo being Nintendo. You eventually kind of get used to just getting punched in the face by them over and over and over again. It's just super frustrating that they can pull that off. And while people will complain, they just kind of sit there and just like, yeah, that's what we do.
Well, yeah, but see, you're a perfect example. You still own 3 Switches and 3 copies of Animal Crossing, right?
And guess what? I don't get to play it because my kids do. All right, I got 3 boys, and they all have their own island on my Switches. So, I could just maybe grab one and just say, hey, I understand buying like another game. It's like, okay, I got to buy 2 copies of this game.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work. It's the dumbest stuff.
Yeah, so Luke, if you weren't aware what he's talking about, right? If you have Animal Crossing in your Switch, right, you can only have one island. So not like normal games where you can have a profile and Dan can sign on and play his island and his son can sign on. You can only have one island on a Switch console.
It's terrible.
That is so quintessentially Nintendo. They get a pass for things. Nintendo gets a pass for things that is mind-boggling. I love my Switch. I absolutely adore it. But goodness gracious, some of the things that we're cool with Nintendo, not cloud saves, whatever. Hey, $5, sort of a cloud save, whatever. It's so weird how we as gamers we would lose it if Sony had some of the same policies.
True.
And yet we're cool with it if it's Nintendo, and it's just funny that speaks to legacy. But that's wild. Just let it be a profile specific thing. That's what anybody would do.
That's what any game has been for years now.
Yeah, wild. But 2 Switches are in my household right now. One's my wife's, and that never gets used ever. I bought her every cool game possible. Yeah, whatever. I love my Switch. I don't want to sell it. We could black market that thing right now and get money for it.
Good, right. Absolutely good. Well, here's the other thing. This shows me. I mean, over half of those, right, is digital sales.
Yes, 5 million.
5 million. All right. If the demand is there, people are going to do it. They're going to buy it. If that's the only option they have.
Don't go on Last of Us 2, Rand.
I'm looking at you right now, Last of Us 2. You!
And I agree with you. I've told you this. Yeah. I have the collector's edition pre-ordered. I'm ready to go, but I would have bought a digital copy as well just to play the game at launch.
Right.
I mean, without a doubt.
Sure.
Bert says, wait for it. We can now transfer between memory cards on the Switch in the new update. 2020 is here, guys.
Yep.
It is here. It's amazing.
It's cool. Overall, MBD, I'm very glad to see that all 3 are doing well, and that continuously throughout this generation specifically, gaming has become cool. Like, we were nerds when we were much younger, and gaming has been getting cooler, and it had to fight some battles along the way. But the value to dollar ratio, the entertainment to dollar ratio that gaming can provide is so much more financially feasible than a movie. Like, I don't know if you guys have done any of the movies at home or theater direct to home now. Like, I bought Sonic the Hedgehog for $20 so I could watch it with my wife. It was about the cost of going to the theater. But if I buy Sonic the Hedgehog, the game, I can get hours and hours and hours and hours of entertainment versus 2 hours. And I think people are waking up to that idea outside of the people that listen to these type of shows and
Sure.
jump in. And Animal Crossing is a mass appeal game. Your mama can play Animal Crossing, so can your grandmama, so can your grandbaby, and suddenly, you're touching a lot of avenues that people didn't realize. We're desperate for entertainment.
Yeah, and then you've got Elijah Wood stopping by your island and saying, "What's up?" Did you guys see that?
Sweetest thing in the world, right? That's the celebrity story you want right now.
And then Brie, is it Brie Larson? That's her name, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Marvel Girl. She posted this morning, like, let's see your Animal Crossing island. Marvel Girl. That's what I'm calling her. Super Marvel, whatever the hell it's called. But yeah, she posted too. It's just it's a phenomenon, right? It's just worldwide.
Yep.
It's also cool. People are realizing that some services are awesome. Game Pass numbers have skyrocketed from what I've been hearing.
Yep.
Awesome. Like I've got hours of entertainment if I need it. It's never the one I want though. 57 channels, nothing on. But like I have all these games to play and I'm able to, and it's good to see that service doing well because it paves the way for even more once we're post-pandemic, years from now, whenever we're recovered from this theoretically. It's continuing to pave a way for access to more games at a consumer-friendly rate.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. You touched on it, but the market today from where it's been, I was thinking about that the other day too, and we've talked about it a lot because we're all older gamers. Is think about like 16-bit era, you spend 50, 60. Super Nintendo games got up to like $80. Spend $80 on a game. This is back in the early 90s, right? And you would play that. There's no updates, no patches, no multiplayer, no nothing. Nowadays, God, the amount of gaming you could do, the amount of time you could spend for $80 is unbelievable. I mean, just hundreds, even thousands of hours. It's nuts. All right. And then I just wanted to say, too, that, a couple weeks ago, we talked about the rumor of the 4 major 3D Mario games being re-released on the Switch in Mario 64, Sunshine, Galaxy, and Mario 3D World. And that seems definitely true because Best Buy put up the SKU last week for Super Mario 3D World on the Switch. So definitely coming, and it's going to shock everyone listening, but the price listed was $59.99.
Whoa. Yeah. 3D World is one of the best Mario games ever made. Fight me in the street.
$60. Gosh, dang it.
So Luke's a 3D World defender then, because I know that's like one of those most Mario 3D games, right, are just beloved across.
Right. And
I know 3D World was one of those where it's like some people really liked it, some people didn't. I have it for my Wii U, and I've played it, but I didn't get all the way through it. So you say it's one of the best, huh?
I love it. I thought it was special. It's a shame that so many great games were tied down by the Wii U's design, and I applaud Nintendo for bringing them out. Of course, I just talked about what Nintendo gets away with, and here I am like, you know what? I spent $60 for Mario World.
Yep, I'm buying that day one.
Yeah. So, but I really did like that game. I like Super Mario Brothers U. I was just playing that yesterday on my Switch. I actually like it more than Odyssey. So, yeah, I'm a defender on that one. And I've never played Sunshine, so if that's in a bundle, I would try that one.
Oh, Sunshine's great. It had a different sense of humor than the other Mario games, and it unique gameplay with the water pack. It's a really good one. I like Sunshine a lot.
Cool.
So, all right. So before we just jump over to what we're currently playing, I just wanted to mention this game because it kind of took me off guard yesterday when it was announced, and found it really funny. As you guys see this trailer for Minimal Effect, which is a parody on Mass Effect.
This is the day one purchase. Day one.
So Luke, if you check on our site, there's a trailer. There's a game coming out next year called Minimal Effect with an A, Effect. And it's a parody of Mass Effect. So it looks like Shepard, looks like, Rex and the guys from Mass Effect, but it's like a cartoon-based, funny, comical game take on Mass Effect. But it just looks hilarious, and it got me thinking, I'm kind of surprised now that I see this that we haven't seen this more often. That we haven't seen these kind of cartoony, lighthearted takes on major IPs like Halo and Gears and whatever. I don't think you could really do Last of Us, but you know what I mean. Just other major IPs. Because when I showed it to Dan, like Dan just said, he was like day one buying it right away.
It looks awesome.
This is a funny trailer. Yeah, I'm looking at it on Season Gaming's site. This is cool.
Yeah. It's everything that Andromeda should have been, but wasn't. That's what the whole thing is.
Are you saying BioWare didn't reach expectations on a game? That's
in the past 10 years
of Andromeda. I thought the gunplay or the fighting mechanics and the combat was really, really good. Everything else, not so much. So it was one of those games where it's just like, man.
It's one of those games you could tell just had development issues.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, we should have seen, that game that shall not be named coming. But you just from Andromeda's.
Anthem. He's talking about Luke. Anthem. We rant about Anthem very often on the show.
It's like saying Baltimore.
Let me go ahead and make sure that nobody checks out my show separately from this. I really enjoyed a lot of Anthem.
So did we.
So did we. We played it a lot. We have a lot of hours in it.
I think I have about 100 hours in that game, and
so does
I love flying around, shooting things. I don't play those games for the loot drops. I don't chase that as much. I just fly around and feel cool. That's really why I played it. And they nailed that. But
yes, they did.
Schreier's Blood, Sweat, and Pixels told a tale about BioWare's Dragon Age Origins, and it's going to be telling a tale about Anthem. And I think Mass Effect Andromeda will certainly be referenced. They're a mess. They're an absolute mess. It's not just an engine. It's top to bottom. They needed a reorganization. They need a reorganization, and hopefully, EA, as the major publisher, seeing Jedi Fallen Order's success with the Unity engine, I believe, will push them away from the Frostbite frustrations, because Frostbite's gorgeous, but it wasn't designed for what it was doing, and it's been patchworked at this point. They either need Frostbite 2 or Unity or something to take their games, because I want more Anthem gameplay. I really am excited for this potential rebirth of it.
Yeah, so
I want to fly around. I want to feel like Iron Man, but I get full-heartedly that you cannot develop a game and say it's going to have BioWare narrative and you're going to have an end game with loot. It's just it's a flawed premise, and it was not executed well. But flying was so cool.
It was awesome.
Yeah, the gameplay was fun as hell. Yeah,
we always talk about that. It was always, they nailed the combat mechanics, the flying, everything. The loot system was trash, and the story just ended. I think it just felt rushed the whole time.
The story was really bad.
Yeah,
it was really
how cool was the soundtrack, guys? I listened to that song.
It is. It's really good.
I love that song so much. Oh, what
like immediately, like if I just knowing that I can't run through the base, that you're at, and or whatever it's called. It would start with a T. I can't remember.
Yeah,
Tarsus or something. Yeah, and or Fort Tarsus. Yeah,
Fort Tarsus. That's it.
Yeah, and you couldn't run really.
No,
you get to where you need to go.
You just walk around.
Like, we're gonna make you look at all this stuff as long as possible.
I remember. I don't know if you remember. I got that one glitch where the one of the bald-headed guys you speak to, you had to turn in the mission to him, and he turned into like 4 people, and one of them went through the ground. I have a video of it, and you could never turn in the mission. Yep. It never worked. It's just those types of issues were unbelievable with that game. But we've talked about it at length. It figures we get talking about Anthem again.
Yeah, never stop.
Happens all the time.
I'm glad I'm in good company though, because I was like, no one's gonna listen to XCP after this. No,
we talk about it quite a bit actually. It's funny. So Lunch Bizzle said the same thing about Minimal Effect. He's buying it day one. I'm telling you, man, these games would sell. And Carl, so it's funny when Andromeda came out, I had alpha access to that game, and Season Gaming wasn't as big at the time, but I wrote an article. It's still on the site. I wrote an article titled "I'm Worried About Mass Effect Andromeda" because I'm a huge Mass Effect fan, and I played the alpha, and then like after a couple hours, I was just like, guys, this is not good. Something's wrong with this game. And sure enough, I heard from a couple people, like I said, not a big audience years ago. Heard from a couple people like, you don't know what you're talking about. This game's going to be game of the year and incredible, and we see how it launched. So, yeah, shame.
Nope.
Now I haven't gone back to Andromeda. I actually have it. I think still shrink wrapped. It's on EA Access. I haven't gone back, but I hear that if you play it now, it's not up to the level of the trilogy, but it's a good game. It's still okay to play.
Yeah, I tried going back to it maybe 6 months ago, just to see because it got enhanced. So I was like, okay, this is going to be awesome. But it's pretty much the same thing. So, they fixed all those big bugs and stuff like that, but it's just, come on.
Yeah, you're not going to fix the whole development of the story with patches. It's just not going to, it's not going to work.
Yeah. No.
All right. So let's talk about games we're actually playing nowadays. And I'm really interested on yours, Luke, because I see you typed out here on our script, Hyperdot. And Hyperdot is a game that is made by one guy. It's made by a company called Tribe Games. The guy's name is Charles. And I met him at E3 in 2018 because they were showing Hyperdot at the place, and we took a video of it. I actually talked to the guy for a while. Super nice guy. And that game is one I keep telling people about because it looks, or when I first played it, I kept telling people that it'd be an amazing game for like couch co-op, for just, having fun with the family, and just, it's just a very fast jump in, jump out type of fun game. So really cool to see that on your list. So if you want to touch on that, awesome. And what else you've been up to?
Yeah, no problem. So I had a very similar experience with you meeting Charles in 2019 over at Xbox Fan Fest. I was fortunate enough to be invited.
Wait, you were in Fan Fest last year?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Bert and I were there too. I didn't even know you at the time.
Yeah. It was a pure honor to be invited. We were guests of Xbox Canada because my co-host at the time for a different show was Canadian. But it was a pleasure to be introduced to Hyperdot there, and then we were excited. We loved it. We played it, and when the game came out, it hit at a wonderful time, I think, and it's available on Game Pass next week. So any listeners in chat, you'll be able to try it out and play the full game. And they've also got some stuff coming for added content as well. But it's beautiful and it's simplistic. It's a minimalistic art style, and you simply need to have your dot in an area and avoid getting hit. And it's very relaxing on some levels, and it's beautiful and it's serene, and it can be very hectic on others. And it's a quiet game in the best way, I feel. And so when it hits Game Pass, everyone should be playing this game and trying it out, because it's just beautiful. It's a wonderful cathartic mind trip, and then you'll rage at other moments too. But
to that point, it reminds me of a lot. What was Geometry Wars? The original Geometry Wars that launched with 360 at the time. God dang, that was a long time ago now. 15 years. Wow. But yeah, it reminded me quite a bit of that game. How it can just be just because the music just sucks you in, and you just kind of get into mindset and while playing it. It's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's rhythmic in a wonderful way. I really dig that. I also have been playing Yakuza 0.
You're in Dan's camp now. He's the Yakuza guy.
Well, the thing is, I'd never played a Yakuza game, and them arriving into Game Pass is exposing me to a new genre. In my mind, I was hoping it would be Sleeping Dogs, probably because it's open world GTA-esque and it's set in Japan. So I was like, oh, cool. It's not that at all. It's a very Sega-esque approach to it, but I'm enjoying it. I was burned because it doesn't autosave, and so last night I played it to replay some stuff, but it's a good lesson learned. I'm enjoying that franchise, and I love to see Microsoft bringing in more previously exclusive games to the service. And then Halo Wars 2 is a game I've put over 500 hours into to play.
Jesus.
It's a turn off your brain, listen to a podcast, watch a show on your tablet type game to just play. And online, again, with my buddies, I have some good friends of mine. Mr. Babbitt hosts a PlayStation show, and he's been playing with my friends and I. Just to play games that will sync time well and take away some of the many hours that we have at home now have been great. So Halo Wars 2 is an underrated strategy game for consoles that I always encourage you to, at the very least, guys, real talk, go watch the cutscenes on YouTube in 4K. Blow your mind impressive. They're made by Blur.
Yeah, they're incredible.
It's nuts. So those are the games that I've been diving into. I just did a replay of Arkham Origins as well. And I mean, I got a lot of time on my hands. I don't have kids at the house, so I'm playing games.
There you go. So remind me, I've got 2 amazing Halo Wars 2 prints that they did when the game launched. Actually on the sides of my wall right on my home theater. I'll have to send you a picture of them because they're awesome. They did them like in the style of Rogue One, Star Wars, but it's the Covenant side and the UNSC side.
Nice.
You have the same one?
I have that same one. Yeah, it's on my, I think with Atriox in the middle.
I think so. That one's over there. I can't see it.
Yeah, I can barely see mine. But for a long time, I'm a huge Halo fan. I read all the novels and stuff.
Oh yeah.
I had the Halo.
I gotta keep getting more Halo fans on here because then we can slowly turn Dan to the light side.
It will never ever happen.
I would hope that Infinite does enough to bring new people in. It has the God of War moment, has enough elements to it. I won't turn your conversation into Halo, I promise. But
I don't mind.
they can bring it back to to bringing the common fan in, because it no longer is. It's the people that like Halo right now, not, oh, you know what, I'll try that. They don't have that element right now. And so here's hoping they're able to make that happen, because it's a glorious universe that's been done well and done poorly. And I think it deserves more attention if Infinite delivers.
I could not agree more. And I'm hoping that with good messaging, a new console, and Game Pass being the biggest factor, that we see exactly that this fall. Assuming Halo Infinite still launches this fall. We'll see.
True. It's true.
Very cool, though. So, Dan, what have you been up to, man? I know I don't know if you were going to talk about it, but I was going to talk a little bit about Fallout 76 just for a laugh. I have been playing it, but you said you've also been playing Final Fantasy more, right?
Oh yeah, I'm getting pretty close to the end. I think I'm pretty sure it's been. I wasn't expecting it because I don't remember anything from when I first played it back on the PlayStation. So you start getting these moments. It's just like, oh yeah, I remember that now. Oh yeah, I remember that guy. Oh yeah. Oh, you know, and the nostalgia isn't that like strong, but like it's just really well done. It's a gorgeous game. The combat is really smooth and intuitive. Take away anything, the fact that it's Final Fantasy is probably gonna, if you're not a fan of it, you're probably thinking, oh, it's just not for me. But it's if you took that out and just made it something else and just named it like, hey, generic fighting game or something like that, and people would be like, oh, let's see what this is like. And it's really, really, really good. It's like a little bit of Dragon Age Inquisition combat, but also Devil May Cry combat.
Okay. It's like a mix of real time and turn based, right?
Yeah, it's just it's mostly just like hack and slash, but there's also strategy that you really have to involve into it. With your other characters. I die a lot, so which is fine if it's not to the point where it's like ridiculously Dark Souls hard, which is not. There are definitely some pretty big bosses. It's got some very heavy. It's a Japanese game. I'll just say that. It's some of the dialogue is a little bit cringy and a little bit.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I've mentioned RKG, those guys I support, and Gav from RKG was talking about Final Fantasy VII, and he was very complimentary, like you are, right? Beautiful graphics, gameplay's awesome, great nostalgia trip, everything about it. And then he started talking about the writing and the dialogue, and he's like, "This is like horrible." He goes, "Some points are really, really poor." Yeah,
it is, and then it's like they took. Because when you translate, I'm assuming if it's like any language that you have to kind of, make it fit the new language you're putting it into, kind of, where it's not like just ridiculous and sounds completely strange. But it's just, they just kind of just went straight over and like, it's got that, kind of laughing, or too. You get that.
See, some people like that though.
Right, yeah, and that's fine.
See, I don't. That's why.
Yeah. That's just a tiny part of the game, though. I mean, really, it's. I'm glad I picked it up. I wasn't going to, and now I'm really, really happy with it. It's probably been. I mean, it's probably one of the best games I played this year. Nice. I want to see how long the next one's going to be.
Did you already finish it?
No.
Okay.
I'm pretty close. I think I'm getting towards the end of it.
Gotcha.
But I start remembering stuff. Like, oh hey, there was this guy that was in it. I haven't seen him yet. It's probably all going to be in the second game at this point.
Okay.
But short of that, I've been playing Mad Max still. I just it's one of those games where I'm just kind of like, that's my game right now, where I play everything and then I come back to Mad Max and just kind of put a little bit into it.
A little bit,
it's really, really fun. And it's really, really, it's nothing crazy. It's nothing that's going to blow your mind, but it's, pretty well done. And the guy who plays Mad Max is 100 times better than Tom Hardy.
Stop it. We're moving on
right now. And then
Dan, it's cool to have that. I have found that when I released myself from worrying about, is this game a 10?
Right.
I had so much more fun with video games. I love the Darksiders franchise. Genesis is incredible, but the others are like 7s. And Mad Max is a 7 as well. Yep. And you have so much fun when you just let yourself enjoy something for what it is. So I know exactly the vibe that you're talking about there. That's cool to hear.
Yeah,
I think I'm trying to figure out the way to say this. Sorry, Dan. But no, I want to say agree 100%. I think way too many people get caught up on ratings and are people liking this game. Oh, these people said this game's not good, so it can't be good, and I'm not going to play it. And it's just super immature, Just try a game, give it a chance. Even games that are mediocre still have enjoyable elements. And I'd rather play a mediocre game that's something I enjoy, whether it's a genre or design, right? Over I'll enjoy a mediocre ARPG, like we were playing Chaos Bane, right? That's a mediocre ARPG. I will get more enjoyment out of that than I would the Final Fantasy VII remake because I don't like that game, even it being AAA and a 90 Metacritic, right?
Right.
The joke that my friends and I have is I'd rather be swimming in 7s than have a 10 every 6 months, and that's the reality. Like Last of Us 2 is going to be an incredible masterpiece. I played Last of Us one time. Broke my heart, was not fun. It is incredible. I was in awe of how great it was. Dude, that wasn't fun though. I was miserable because the narrative is be like you're supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
And I would much rather play State of Decay where, it's in this apocalyptic world, but I'm having a great time looting things and I'm fighting. I feel like I can win. And so I would rather swim in 7s on a regular basis than have 110 every few months. That's just my gaming style.
And it's funny you say that because I constantly preach out about multiplayer, right? Like we talk about Last of Us, even BioShock 1. I've played both of those games, 2 of my favorite games of all time. I've played them both multiple times all the way through, Last of Us and BioShock 1. But you could add up all the hours I've put into those 2 games. You'd probably get 150 hours, right? I've played Halo 5 for 600 hours. I'm just get more enjoyment, more time, more fun with my friends in a game like that, even though Metacritic, whatever, it may not be as high. And I think that's true of a lot of games.
So I think we have like when you say swim in 7s, that's what you need to do between these 10s, right? So it's like, hey, I got this 10 over here. Okay. And I got to swim 7s. It's in my next 10. That's where I'm heading in that direction. But you're right. Yeah. I mean, Mad Max it knows what it is. It doesn't try to be anything that it's not. It doesn't come out and it's like, we're going to wow you with this. No, we're going to make it playable and enjoyable.
Yep.
And, that's it. And
it was true to Mad Max.
Yeah.
Yep.
100%.
So before, give me 1 second, Dan. Yep. Luke asked a question about the Skywalker Saga, the Lego game in chat. And that's one that we actually got the closed door. Bert and I got the closed door demo, spoke to the producer of the game at E3. There's actually a video on our channel, us talking about that game. But sadly, I think that's going to be it's going to surprise people in that game. And I talk about that in the video if you want to check that out. But I don't really have any information since then. It was supposed to be out sometime this summer is what the producer told us last year. But I haven't heard anything about that game. So it is kind of weird that we haven't seen or heard anything of that game lately.
Do you think you see that in like the May event that that we might possibly get from Microsoft because it was on their stage in 2019? Do you think we see that as one of the games?
I would like to see it. Like I said, I think people who really enjoy the Lego games are going to be blown away by this because it's a different. They're doing it differently than the past games. It's not like these set little pieces, right? It's an actual open world, like RPG type game that has all 9 of the movies, the entire saga. And you can fly between worlds and it's just super, super impressive. When we got into the backstage demo, whatever of it, and it was just something we were going to do. I think we were like on our way to lunch and it was like, oh, we can step in here real quick, right? And it was like 10 minutes long. And afterwards, Bert and I both were like, wow, that was really, really impressive. Like I didn't expect it to be that impressive. So that could be, of course, why it's taking longer to develop. But yeah, I would hope that we do see it at one of these reveal events by May or June. So
cool.
Nice.
Anyway, Dan, go ahead.
Oh no, other than that, I've started a new God of War playthrough because it's awesome. And I watched Finding Kratos on YouTube, and I was like, I gotta go back and start another. I just jumped back into my my New Game Plus, so I'm kind of working my way through that. That's another one of those, just kind of when I have time to play it. And then we played that Fallout 76, which might be the last time I play it. I'm not sure yet.
Damn it! You got me to play it. You can't bail on me now.
I feel bad for reasons. One, I got you into it. Two, I spent $15 in Xbox credit that I could have gave to a charity. Now that I see that on the first, whatever the heck their season pass thing is, or their monthly subscription, which is canceled immediately. I think there's something to it. I think they're on the right track, but I'd say that, however long this game's been out, they're getting there, and there's some fun stuff in it. It's so all over the place.
It is. That engine is so outdated.
It's so bad.
It's hard to believe that they're still building games in that, and it's still got glitches, still got hiccups. Because I've been playing it, and I played it a couple times past few days. But the weird thing is, I'm starting to have a little fun with it. I actually, as a joke, if I didn't have the new Bitcast shirt, I actually was going to come on today with my Fallout 76 shirt and my Fallout hoodie, and have like the bobbleheads behind me just as a joke. By the way, I got all those things free, so I did not spend money on them.
Should that first.
But the one thing I can say about it is, well, they've improved it greatly since launch. That's a given, right? But the one thing I think that's really impressive about it is, and I talk about this with Red Dead when we talk about, is escapism. If you just want to go into a game and take your mind, just go into a different world, right? It's a huge play space. You can go anywhere you want, and you never know what you're going to find. And there's always been something about those types of games that appeal to me. Just being able to just wander. Yesterday I was going somewhere and there was like a level 4 enemy, and then 20 feet behind him there's a level 37. And I'm a 6 or a 7, right? And it's like, well, I can't fight that guy, so I better start running this direction. But then you can sneak around, and you never know what you're going to find. And I think that's really fun, at least to a degree, as long as the mechanics, even the combat is poor. If you're not using the VAT system, the actual movement and shooting is so poor. Outer Worlds did it far better.
Oh, yeah, they did.
And it was a much smaller studio, so it's baffling to me how they managed to do such a poor job on this one.
You got to try to be that bad. That's what it is. Yeah.
Maybe BioWare and Bethesda were working together, and they just, who knows?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. No. I could talk about World of Tanks. Constantly playing that still. I'm still addicted. I think that's going to be for months, so I'll stop bringing that up. But Fallout 76 has been about the only other new thing I'm playing. I still play a lot of Smite. I don't know if any of this community actually plays Smite or not. But it's it's a MOBA with the gods, and they just continually update it. There's always new gods, always new things going on, and it's fun. So I constantly put time into that. But that's about it. So all right, guys, I think that's going to wrap us up for today. So Luke, man, absolute pleasure having you on. Seriously, it's been a lot of fun. Finally getting to speak to you face to face or camera to camera. So I know we've been chatting for a while. Big congratulations on the success of Expansion Pass, man. Everyone, I think, here probably knows you, who's watching or listening. But if you are listening and watching and you don't know Luke, InsipidGhost on Twitter, Xbox Expansion Pass podcast. It's weekly. Make sure you look it up. It's excellent. Luke, go ahead and shout out whatever you'd like to shout out, man.
Oh, well, I mean, you said it, man. The Xbox Expansion Pass, I'm very proud of, and it's growing in, I think, the right ways, organically with the right people. I get to talk to a number of amazing people throughout the industry. I've had guests like Steve Spawn from Able Gamers on. Yes. Steve Philby from Motion Twin Games was recently on the show to talk about Dead Cells and how they were successful and where they failed. I just spoke with Mike Bithell, the creator of Thomas Was Alone, a few days ago. That'll be on this upcoming episode to talk about how he's finding success in multi-branding and where Game Pass slots in there. And then interestingly, also, I'm talking to Gamers Outreach late next week, and they provide games for young people in hospitals, which is all the more important right now. They bring console systems into hospitals for kids. So I'll be talking with them about how COVID-19 has affected them and what it is they do prior to that. We actually have been chatting since pre-virus just to talk about what we would have them on the show. And so it's been interesting. It's been a change of schedule for them a number of times due to that. And so I'm really hoping people will check out the show because it would mean the world to me, and stick around if you enjoy it, for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, good to hear about that too. And funny enough, we launched our merch store a few weeks ago, and we're donating those 50% of the revenue to Special Effect and Able Gamers, which Steve Spohn is, I think he's the COO or CFO of. So I've spoken to him as well. Really good guy. Funny enough, I spoke to Gamers Outreach prior to us launching as well. So that's just awesome. I love the gaming charities are really something special to me. I think they do a lot of good work, and the gaming community, I love seeing it come together like that for positive ways. So I preach about that a lot, and I will continue to. But no, awesome having you on, Luke. Really appreciate it, and we'll have to do it again in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Nice to meet you, man.
Likewise, man. Likewise. I'm with my people, Anthem.
You found the other two.
Well, so hey, let's do this then. When 2.0 launches, if it ever launches, and if it's actually worth playing, let's the three of us come back together and we'll do an Anthem 2.0 podcast specific.
Yeah.
On the record, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll do that. That'll be fun. Dan, anything you want to shout out before we head out?
I'm good, man.
All right.
Good.
Fun as always, chat, man. Thanks for joining. Thanks for watching. Super appreciative, as you know. Really love seeing this kind of grow in the live show, and I think we're getting a little better at it. I think we're trying our best here, but no, really appreciate you guys stopping by. And as always, we'll see you next Saturday. And if there's anything you want us to talk about ahead of time, realize obviously you can reach out to us on Twitter, of course, but you can also email us at bitcast@seasongaming if you want us to read out a question or anything you think for the show. So we'll see you next week. Talk to you then.